All right, looks like we are live for our 3 o'clock live stream. Got a nice view for you guys here to get started. And head on over into the field a little bit, and let's hope our connection holds up here. So today it is World Snake Day. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about snakes. Some of the snakes you might find here on the North Coast. Come out here into the sun and see how our connectivity does. Little flying walk down the trail for you guys to get started. All right, that should be good. This around here. Okay. All right, so doing things a little non-traditional today. Hopefully, I'll be able to see your comments here. I have another device. We're streaming through Zoom. We've got all kinds of fancy things going on today. And reason being, I want to be able to share, some images with you today. So I'm going to be talking about snakes. Snakes being a little bit elusive. We probably aren't going to see any out in the park today, even though it is a bright sunny day here. We might find some snakes out sunning themselves even in this park up here on the North Coast. But I want to show you guys some images of snakes because we might not be able to actually see any today. So really quick, I just want to say hello. My name is Kyle. I'm a park interpretive specialist for California State Parks. Today, I'm out at Fort Humboldt State Historic Park. This is in Eureka, California. I want to recognize before we start that I am on ancestral Wiyot land today around Humboldt Bay. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll do my COVID messaging at the end that we love so near and dear. So I'm going to keep this nice and short and sweet. Please feel free to comment any questions you might have about snakes. This is partially in response. A couple of programs ago, somebody was wondering what types of snakes we have on the North Coast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about snakes, a little bit about why we're afraid of snakes, and then I'll just kind of rattle off our species we have here and show you some images of the snakes you might find up here on the North Coast. So really quick, I just wanted to start with acknowledging that a lot of people have a fear of snakes. It's about a third of all adults actually have a phobia of snakes and are so terrified of them just seeing them. And we can have these kind of irrational fears where we don't necessarily know a lot about something, but we feel really threatened by it. And snakes, our fear actually is an inherited fear. So for our ancestors, it was actually desired to be scared of things that could hurt you. It was good to be afraid of snakes and spiders, or even the dark, some really common fears for people. And turn towards the sun a little bit more. And part of that is that it helped us stay alive, right? If you were afraid of snakes or if you were afraid of spiders, you would avoid those things. You wouldn't get bit by them. There are some snakes that are venomous. There are some spiders that can kill us, right? We can die from injuries due to their bites and things like that. So it's actually can be desirable trait for our ancestors to be afraid of those things. Now with modern medicine, we have ways to counteract that. We have antivenoms and things like that. So that if you're in a well-developed area, that even if you get bit by a snake or a spider, it's not going to be detrimental to your health. The other part of that is that a lot of the snakes specifically that we have up here are non-venomous. So while you might see a snake, you might think it's totally threatening to your life. Most of the snakes that we have up here on the North Coast are non-venomous, meaning that they don't have venom. They can't essentially poison your body. And only one species that can actually harm humans, really. So we have a number of snake species here, and only one of them is really one that you should kind of look out for and not necessarily be afraid of, but just try not to get bit, right? Give it space. That's important. So let's go ahead and start getting into our species here. I want to start with one of the most common species that people see all over the place, and that is the garter snake. So this is a really common type of snake. Garter snakes are seen just about everywhere. And we have actually 3 different types of garter snakes up here on the North Coast. We have a common garter snake, a northwestern garter snake, and an aquatic garter snake. That's right, these garter snakes, there are aquatic versions that can swim. And also interesting, I found out that a number of aquatic snakes breathe partially through their skin to help them stay submerged. I'm not exactly sure if the garter snake does that, but this is a really, really common type of snake that you can see everywhere. And most of the time they look really similar to this. They've got a stripe along their body from just about the base of their neck to the end of their tail, and relatively mute coloring. Now, we do have, there are varieties of this that you might see even bright red or a variety of different colors, but you can always tell a garter snake by that one stripe right along the back of their spine, always going back. All right. So that's the garter snake. Another species of snake that I just learned, another species of snake that I just learned exists up here and was actually seen by one of our interpreters, Griff, is wrong. Oh my goodness, sorry, getting my keys. There we go. Sorry about that. Try that again. I accidentally went into driving mode. I wanted to show you an image of a snake. Here we go. So this is a type of snake called a rubber boa. And Griff actually saw one of these the other day. Rubber boas are one of the most docile snakes in nature. They almost never bite humans. And another really neat adaptation by the rubber boa is that their head and their tail look almost identical. So here, I'll pull up one more picture for you guys. I know I didn't show that one for very long. Oh, goodness. There we go. Here's another image of the rubber boa, and you can see just how, you know, it tucks its head and its tail in if it feels threatened, so that its whole body kind of looks like one continuous snake mass. If you were a predator trying to attack them, you wouldn't really be able to find the head or the tail to be able to eat it, or you could just start eating the whole snake. So they are relatively docile and do well being handled by humans, but they do release kind of a musky scent if they feel threatened. That is one of their defenses, is to stink. We love a stinky defense. So that is the northern rubber boa, another species of snake that we have out here. Next, I want to show you the western yellow-bellied racer. Let's see, there's our yellow-bellied racer. So as the name suggests, the easiest way to identify this is that it's got that bright yellow underbelly. They are a non-venomous snake, and they are an endemic subspecies, meaning the endemic subspecies of the eastern yellow-bellied racer. So they basically are only found in this this area. It's not strictly Humboldt, but they're endemic to the West Coast, only found here, and they're a subspecies of their eastern relatives, so very similar to the same name, yellow-bellied racer, that you'd find on the East Coast. That's our yellow-bellied racer. Let's go on to one that I found incredibly interesting. I didn't know about this snake until just today. I started doing some research on it, and I found it incredibly interesting. This is called, let's see if I can pull this up for you. Yes, we can. So this snake is called the sharp-tailed snake. And I couldn't find, I found a couple of different pictures, and I'm not sure if this is exactly the species that we have here. I think the one that we have up here on the North Coast is a little bit more mute in coloration. It's not quite as bright red, at least traditionally. And these snakes are relatively small. They're only about a foot long at their longest, and they burrow pretty regularly. So you might find these in your garden, or if you're digging in some concrete and things like that, they can often be found underground. They eat small things like slugs, stuff like that in your garden. And their namesake and what makes them kind of a special adaptation, if you look right at the end of their tail here, you can see it's kind of sharp. It's got this point coming out. And that's actually a little bit of overgrown vertebrae. So intentionally, their spine overgrows and protrudes out of the very end of their tail. And they use that as sort of like a fork to hold down their prey. So a lot of what they eat is kind of slippery things like slugs and other pests that you might find in your garden. So this is actually a great snake to have around your garden. It's going to help eat the things that are eating your plants and help limit those populations. And it's just got a really cool adaptation to have a piece of its spine coming out of its tail there. It's also a non-venomous species. So if you were bit by this, it's not injecting venom into your system. And also incredibly small, only about a foot long at its biggest. So that's a small snake. And they're often mistaken for worms, as they are that kind of pinkish in their juvenile. So they can be mistaken for worms you might find in your garden. So next, let's bring up, we've got a pretty fancy representative here. And it looks like my comments might have disappeared for a minute. I'll pull those back up in just a second. Get back to you guys. There, yeah, that's it right there. So this is the Western ringneck snake. And as its name suggests, it has a ring right at the base of its neck. That's one of the easiest ways to identify it. And then it has this really, really bright and kind of spectacular underbelly going on. So I just thought the underbelly was really striking. And this is one of the things that it does for its defense is that it'll flash that bright red underbelly at its at predators, suggesting that it's poisonous or venomous. And this is a really common tactic. A lot of these snakes use different types of mimicry, basically mimicking venomous or dangerous animals in order to deter their predators. So by flashing this bright red underbelly, it's saying, don't eat me, I'm poisonous, I could hurt you, even though it's not. So it's trying to deter things from eating it. So that is the northwestern ringneck snake. And this snake is venomous, but it is such a low dose of venom that it's not exceptionally harmful to humans, I was reading. Still good to give them their space and try not to get bitten by any snake, but especially those that are venomous. If you see it coiling and exposing its bright red underbelly, that's a good enough warning that maybe you're a little too close. Give it some more space. All right, next we've got the California king snake. Now, a lot of you guys are probably familiar with this because it's one of the most popular pets as far as snakes go. California king snake is a really popular pet. It is also a rattle mimic, so it will use its tail, put that into the brush or into the grass to shake the grass around to mimic the rattle of a rattlesnake. That's another way to deter predators there. It also, just like the rubber boa, can release the musk. What's really cool about this snake, while they're called the king snake, is because they eat other snakes. And they're actually resistant to venom, even the venom of rattlesnakes. So California king snake can actually take a bite from a rattlesnake and tends to eat those kinds of snakes that we traditionally consider threatening. So if you don't like rattlesnakes, it's a great thing to have a California king snake around. This is a non-venomous species, so even if this bites you, it's not going to inject any sort of venom into your system. And just absolutely beautiful. This is another example of using that mimicry as well. You'll notice these kind of red and yellow bands. It's really common with the coral snake, which is an incredibly venomous snake. And the king snake is mimicking that look, again, to try and deter predators. Okay. So last but not least, these are the two that I think is incredibly important. So we have the last two that we're going to look at is a gopher snake and a rattlesnake. And the reason I saved these for last and wanted to spend some time talking about these two is because they're frequently mistaken for each other. And a lot of gopher snakes, which are non-venomous and really kind of helpful to have around, are treated like rattlesnakes and are sometimes killed because people mistakenly identify them. You should never kill a snake without calling animal control or something or things like that. They provide all sorts of beneficial services, even the venomous snakes, even the ones that we want to avoid and not get bitten by. They provide a whole bunch of services for our ecosystem and a really important part of those ecosystems. So it's really important to leave snakes. Don't kill them, even if you're afraid of them. They're really, really important and really cool. So let's take a look at these last two species. We'll look at the gopher snake and the rattlesnake. So let's start with the gopher snake. Excellent. So here's a gopher snake. The biggest differences to look at between a gopher snake and a rattlesnake, the easiest identifier for me is their head. So if you look at the gopher snake's head, whoa, it is a little bit bigger than its body, but its whole body is kind of one continuous tube. It's kind of whip-like, and you'll notice that at the end of its tail, there is no rattles, it just comes to a point. But they also will often mimic rattlesnake behavior and even make themselves look like rattlesnakes. So using their tail as a rattle is one really common one that a lot of snakes do, but they do a number of other things to look like rattlesnakes. So I'll show you a rattlesnake and then I'll talk about some of the ways that they kind of make themselves similar. There's our rattlesnake. Excellent. So here you can see the rattlesnake. You see they have a really similar pattern going on with their body. It's kind of these big brown splotches. But the biggest difference is rattlesnakes have this really thick body, and it's kind of dry or dull. And then they've got this massive kind of triangular head, and then of course the rattle on the end of their tail. So the biggest, again, to notice the difference here, we've got the rattle on the tail, which the gopher snake doesn't have, and then this massive, thick, triangular head that the gopher snakes don't quite have. And then that dense, kind of dull body, where gopher snakes are a little bit more bright and shiny, they tend to be. So let's go back and look at the gopher snake again really quick, just so you get a view for some of those similarities. And so gopher snakes have gone so far to imitate rattlesnakes that they'll puff up their body, they'll flatten their head down, and they'll stick their tail in dry grass and rattle it around to try and make that same sound. So they've got all kinds of adaptations that work well on predators, intending to scare them off. But these techniques don't work as well on humans because they make us afraid of them because we think they're rattlesnakes. So it's always important to take the time to identify the snake. Always give them space. You never really want to be bitten by a snake. But again, only 2 of the species that I talked about on here are venomous, and that's the Pacific rattlesnake and the ringneck snake, the northwestern ringneck snake. So those are the only 2 that actually are venomous, and of those 2, the only one that's really harmful to humans is the Pacific rattlesnake. But even rattlesnakes provide a huge amount of ecosystem services. One of the biggest things that they do for us is help to eliminate pests and control populations of prey. So things like rodents, rats, mice, gophers, all kinds of things provide great food for not just snakes, but all kinds of other things. And if snakes weren't around in the ecosystem to help control those populations, they'd boom out of control. You don't like having mice or rats in your house, you can thank the snakes for eating them and keeping them outside. If there was this overpopulation, they'd be living wherever they can make space. Additionally, snakes have some really cool things. I was doing some research today and I found out some things that I didn't even know. I learned that they hear through vibrations, essentially. So through their jaw, they put that on the ground and they can hear things through the vibrations in the ground rather than having ears. The tongue is a huge piece of their sense. That's their sense of smell, their sense of taste, all kinds of things they can tell with their tongue. They also have thermal vision. Most snakes can basically sense the heat radiating off of things, and that helps with their hunting. One of my favorites to find out was talking about the importance of snakes as fertilizers. So a lot of snakes are nocturnal. If you have snakes in your yard that are slithering around, maybe hunting things in your garden and things like that, they're going to the bathroom while they do that. And they're fertilizer. That's actually their droppings are incredibly rich fertilizer. So them being around your garden and leaving their droppings is really beneficial for plant growth as well. All kinds of just amazing things, and almost all snake species do some degree of mimicry. So we talked about a lot of them mimicking the rattle. We talked about the king snake mimicking the coral snake pattern, but a lot of them do different types of mimicry. It's pretty incredible. So many people are afraid of snakes and frequently kill them before getting to understand them, and that's leading to a decline in their population. And if this kind of attitude continues, we might see them going extinct at some point. So it's really important to learn about snakes, love snakes, let them be in their habitats, and in so many places their habitat is being removed, which is why you see them frequently in people places, in your home and things like that, is because their habitat's being removed. So important to provide habitat, important ecosystem services for people, and they're just spectacular animals. There's so many cool things that we can learn about them, and they're so cool to watch. So if you want to learn more about snakes or the snakes in your area, CaliforniaHerps.com has all kinds of great resources for what kind of reptiles you might be able to find in your area, and just a really complete list of snakes. And then SaveTheSnakes.org talks a little bit about this decline in population and the issues with this overarching fear of snakes that a lot of people fear. So important to learn about your snakes, important to love snakes. Think about all the great things that snakes do for you, and do a little bit of research, because I'm sure that you could learn something new as well. That snakes have all kinds of incredible adaptations. Looking at different species, there's so many amazing things that they can do. So out here in this sunny spot at Fort Humboldt, I know there's probably not a whole lot of snakes out here, but getting into the summer, we are going to be seeing a lot more snakes in our park. Again, if you see them on the trails and things like that, just leave them where they are. Frequently, they'll also be in the road. As their habitat gets removed, rocks that they like to sun themselves on become less and less available, and you'll find them on paths, trails, roads, and things like that. Report snakes that you find out on the road if you're not comfortable moving them, and to the park, and they'll maybe help them out of the way for you. Yeah, maybe they'll be gone by the time. So love your snakes. Learn more about snakes. Check out these websites if you want to learn more. SaveTheSnakes.org, California Herps. I'll put those links down in the comments. And let me go through here one more time just to make sure we don't have any questions. Doesn't look like it. Well, happy World Snake Day, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate being here. Really appreciate you guys all doing your part to shelter in place as well during COVID-19. So incredibly important. We're following those guidelines as well. Sanitizing equipment, washing our hands, staying 6 feet away from everyone we might see on the trail. And I've got a pocket full of masks just in case. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Check us out every day at 3. We've got virtual junior ranger programs happening every Thursday at 11:30 as well. Those are live streaming on our YouTube channel. Check out our YouTube. We've got all of our past live streams broadcasted. It's North Coast Redwoods District. Just give us a search on YouTube. You should find this real quick. So thanks again so much, everybody. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon. I just realized I have to run this back to the office before I can turn off my live stream. So bear with me. We're going on one more walk here. You guys don't mind, right? You don't mind a little, 5-second walk over this way, checking out the beautiful background. Beautiful day here at Fort Humboldt. Nice sunny patch. It's excellent. Oh, wow. One more thing before I completely finish up. We make discoveries in parks all the time, find different things to look at. Just saw this. This is a 10-lined June bug, or June beetle. There we go. Give me a little zoom. See. Maybe I can't zoom. Looks like it is not quite alive, but I've been seeing these big old beetles in a bunch of different parks. Just looking around. So the 10-lined June bugs, related to the June bugs that you see coming out in June. All right, you guys. That up there. Thank you again. I'm gonna go end the stream. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow at 3.